We have met the enemy, and they are ours. Well, you know where that came from? Captain Oliver Hazard Perry, the Battle of Lake Erie. In September of 1813, with war hindering supply lines to the British Fort Malden in Amherstburg, Ontario, the British attempted to send supplies on a squadron of 6 ships across Lake Erie. The British squadron was commanded by the one-armed Commodore Robert Barclay, who had his arm blown off fighting Napoleon's French fleet. The United States had 28-year-old Captain Oliver Hazard Perry. He launched his ships into Lake Erie at Put-in-Bay, Ohio, to block the British. Most of Perry's crew were free blacks from Ohio. The boats were built in shipyards along the Erie Canal. Perry's ship, called the Fleet of the Wilderness, were caulked with lead. September 9th, 1813. This day was recommended months in advance by President James Madison to be a day of public humiliation and prayer. He said, "Whereas in times of public calamity, such as that of the war brought on the United States by the injustice of a foreign government, it is especially becoming that the hearts of all should be touched with the same, and the eyes of all be turned to that almighty power in whose hands are the welfare and the destinies of nations." The day after Madison had the whole nation pray with this day of prayer, that's the day Captain Oliver Hazard Perry confronted the British squadron on Lake Erie on September 10th. There were strong winds on the lake, and this prevented Perry from getting into a safe position. Long-range British cannons splintered to pieces Perry's flagship, the USS Lawrence, killing many of his crew. Well, they expected him to get in a boat and row over and surrender. But faithful to his battle flag, don't give up the ship, he took that flag and he went with his crew to another ship. They courageously rowed half a mile through heavy gunfire to the USS Niagara. The wind suddenly changed directions, and Perry was able to sail broadside directly across the British line, firing every cannon continuously. Well, within 15 minutes, his cannons blasted into the British squadron. And then the smoke clears to reveal that all of Barclay's ships had been disabled. This was the first time in history that an entire British naval squadron had been completely disabled at one time. To the sailors on deck, Captain Perry remarked, "The prayers of my wife are answered." The same day, Captain Oliver Hazard Perry sent a dispatch to U.S. Major General William Henry Harrison. "Dear General, we have met the enemy and they are ours. 2 ships, 2 brigs, 1 schooner, and 1 sloop. Yours, with great respect and esteem, H. Perry." Captain Oliver Hazard Perry then wrote to the Secretary of Navy, "It has pleased the Almighty to give the arms of the United States a signal victory over their enemies on this lake. The British squadron, consisting of 2 ships, 2 brigs, 1 schooner, 1 sloop, have this moment surrendered to the force of my command after a sharp conflict." President James Madison stated in his 5th annual message, December 7th, 1812, "It has pleased the Almighty to bless our arms." On Lake Erie, the squadron under the command of Captain Perry, having met the British squadron of superior force, a sanguinary conflict ended in the capture of the whole. As a result of Perry's victory, the British were unable to bring supplies to Fort Malden, and they had to abandon it. Major General William Henry Harrison was then able to recapture Fort Detroit and then defeat the British and their Indian ally, Shawnee Chief Tecumseh, at the Battle of the Thames, October 5th of 1813. This battle secured for the United States the Northwest Territory, from which eventually came 6 states. Captain Oliver Hazard Perry died August 23, 1819, being hailed as a national hero for the victorious role in the War of 1812. After the war, Madison proclaimed a national day of thanksgiving and devout acknowledgments to Almighty God, March 4, 1815. He said, "No people ought to feel greater obligations to celebrate the goodness of the great disposer of events and of the destinies of nations than the people of the United States. To the same divine author of every good and perfect gift, we are indebted for all those privileges and advantages, religious as well as civil, which are so richly enjoyed in this favored land. I now recommend a day on which the people of every religious denomination may, in their solemn assemblies, unite their hearts and their voices in a free will offering to their heavenly benefactor, their homage of thanksgiving and of their songs of praise."